This is my personal story. It twisted my life inside out. I'll tell it straight. I got married young, in my late teens. By 2002, my daughter was born and life was comfortable. Good family, good home, lots of laughter. We spent months traveling between our places, a steady, happy routine. My husband's brother lived with us, and everyone in that household was close. Joking and loud, everyone used to tease that our houseplate should read the Addams Families because we were so tight-knit. In 2008, we began looking for a wife for my brother-in-law. A girl was suggested, a college friend of my sister-in-law. She started visiting a lot, always bringing sweet dishes she'd made. We liked her enough and arranged the marriage very quickly. They wanted it done almost immediately. After some back and forth, we agreed to a fast engagement and wedding. At first, she seemed normal enough. But after marriage, small things started to change between us. Tiny arguments, little cuts of coldness that I couldn't explain. She began to act less like a guest and more like she belonged, pushing into household matters, criticizing me about my relationships with my brother-in-law. She kept insisting my husband call her by special pet names and made our demands in private. I ignored these things at first. We were liberal, open-minded, and I didn't want to start fights. Months later, she became pregnant. Even then, she kept acting strange, the way she cooked, how she put things away, and constantly comparing herself to me. When the baby was born, it was a girl, but she insisted it should have been a boy. She barely looked at her newborn girl and started making comments that felt like poison. She moved into our house for a time after the birth, closer than custom would normally allow, and she began inserting herself into our lives more forcefully. I found it troubling, but I tried to keep peace. Not long after, my health collapsed. At first it was subtle. I lost weight rapidly, my energy vanished, my hands and feet went cold and dark. I felt decades older overnight. Local doctors ran tests, ultrasound, blood work, everything came back normal. But I could barely walk. The pain was concentrated low in my abdomen, a grinding, pressuring kind of agony, as if something heavy had been placed inside me. I would lapse into breathless, terrified states that made me panic. Sleep became a nightmare. Nights were the worst. From sunset to dawn, I felt attacked. I could not eat, I could not stand, and no medical treatment seemed to touch it. My husband pulled away like his love had gone numb. The house that had been full of laughter grew silent. Someone suggested a psychiatrist. We tried that, too. Nothing helped. Then my father, a devout, gentle man, began reading long chapters from Scripture aloud and making supplications constantly. Each time he would recite, my condition worsened. My eyes felt like they were burning. Something hot seemed to leave my skull. My family realized this was not a simple illness. They began to suspect something else, that someone had targeted me with black magic. A woman known locally for spiritual healing examined me. She spoke carefully and told us that I was indeed afflicted by a harmful charm placed directly where I menstruated. She said some kind of ritual had been performed against me, and that the pain and heaviness I felt were the result. My husband and I were stunned. I'd never believed in this. We lived in the city, had educated friends. None of this should have been part of our lives. But there it was, a tangible, awful reality taking over my body. My sister-in-law's behavior escalated. She started acting violent toward me. Once, while I stood in the kitchen, she ran at me with a kitchen knife. My grandmother intervened and saved me. After that, I sent my daughter to my parents' house for her safety. I found strange traces in my room, lines of dust, piles of dirt, strange clawed marks, and, once, a huge black bird on my balcony with eyes that glowed red. My roof had strange deposits, cracked eggshells, huge black claws, like the detritus of something enormous. No one could explain how those things had appeared. We started daily rituals at home. My father, desperate, brought in a man who performed a purification ritual, prayers, holy water, and incantations. After the ritual, for the first time in months, I felt relief. The pain eased, I could walk again. For a few blessed days, I felt human. But the attacks returned. I began having terrifying visions, a long black snake-like thing that tightened around my throat and whispered threats, promising to kill me. I'd choke and scream and be unable to breathe until I invoked prayer and felt it release. I woke with claw marks on my back more than once. Objects moved. The air in my room was thick and hostile. Every window and corner of my bedroom became crowded with amulets and protective verses as my family scrambled to protect me. Months turned into almost a year of living like this, going from near death to brief recoveries, until finally my father decided we should leave town. We went to stay with relatives in a quieter place, people who were known to help with these problems. They performed domestic rites and offered regular spiritual care. There, I healed enough to resume life, though not without scars. When I returned home, things seemed normal for a while. My husband and I managed to stitch something back together, or so I thought. Then, in 2017, everything collapsed. My husband divorced me within a week. 1 week. My life unraveled. Suddenly I was cast out, forced from the house, denied access to my daughter. I moved into a small rented apartment downtown and began the slow process of rebuilding. Even after the divorce, the echoes of that year followed me. The woman who had first come into our lives, my sister-in-law, eventually died under strange circumstances. I don't know all the facts, and I do not judge what fate is. But her death, sudden and heavy, left a hollow knot in my chest. I tell this story now only to ask people one thing: do not let jealousy or envy take root. Don't compare your loved ones to others. The smallest act, the smallest desire to harm another, can start a chain that destroys lives. I lost my marriage, years of peace, and the closeness to my child for a long time because of things that started small, then grew monstrous. I am okay now. I am alive. I still miss my daughter and the life I had. But what I lived through was real. Doctors couldn't fix it. Psychiatrists couldn't fix it, and only a mix of spiritual remedies and distance finally calmed the storm. This is my warning. Sometimes evil wears the face of ordinary people. Sometimes it arrives dressed as kindness. Be careful what you let in.